Assalamu alaikum everyone. This video is about forgetting by theory knowledge. So today in this video we'll be discussing some definitions of forgetting, the types of forgetting and reasons of forgetting, and the seven sins of memory, and at the end we will be discussing the factors of forgetting. So let's start with the definition of forgetting. There are basically 6 definitions which I have included in my video about forgetting, and these definitions are stated by different people. So let's start with the Aristotle. Aristotle stated that forgetting is fading of original experience with passage of time, and it arises due to disuse. And according to Gordon, retention may be viewed in either positive or negative aspect, and forgetting is negative aspect of retention. And according to Driver in 1952, forgetting means failure at any time to recall an experience when attempting to do so or to perform an action previously learned. And according to English and English 1958, forgetting the loss or losing, temporary or permanent, of something earlier learned, losing ability to recall, recognize, or to do something. And the next definition is about Moon in 1967. According to him, forgetting is failing to retain or to be able to recall which has been acquired. And according to Stanger and Solly in 1970, forgetting is a negative aspect of the memory, and it is a failure to recall that which was once learned. And how to say that it is simply the failure to recall or recognize. So there are different types of forgetting. The mainly 3 types of forgetting. The first one is a natural forgetting, or you can natural forgetting and morbid forgetting. But natural forgetting is also called normal forgetting, and it's also called passive forgetting, whereas the morbid forgetting is also called abnormal forgetting, or you can say active forgetting. So I have included all the terms that are used for the first type. So it's natural or normal or passive forgetting, and morbid or abnormal or active forgetting. And the second type is general and specific forgetting. And the third type is physical, or you can say organic forgetting, and psychological forgetting. So let's start with the natural forgetting and morbid forgetting. In the natural or normal or passive forgetting, forgetting occurs in a normal way without making any effort or attempt with a passage or lapse of time, or because of the disuse of the material learned earlier. Whereas in morbid or abnormal or active forgetting, a person deliberately forgets and consciously represses the unpleasant and painful material or information or experiences to be forgotten into unconscious. The second type is about general and specific forgetting. In general forgetting, there is a total loss of previously learned material, whereas in specific forgetting, there is partial loss or loss of specific part of previously learned material. And the third type is physical or organic and psychological forgetting. In physical or organic forgetting, certain physical illness, age, accidents, defects in the nervous system or brain can alter the functioning of the brain and nervous system and causes forgetting. Whereas in psychological forgetting, psychological factors like stress, anxiety, conflicts, emotional and psychological disorders causes forgetting. So much of we think have forgotten does not really qualify forgotten, because it was never encoded and stored in the first place. Memory has 3 major components: the encoding, storage, and retrieval. And forgetting may occur due to failure at any of the stage. It may occur because of the failure of encoding, or failure of storage, or failure of retrieval. So we will discuss the reasons for forgetting. What are the reasons of forgetting? And these reasons are also the theories of forgetting. The first one is a trace theory, then there is interference and retrieval failure, and storage failure, encoding failure, organic cause, confusion, trace dependent for forgetting, and cue dependent forgetting. The last one is motivated forgetting or repression. So there are different types of theories available on the internet if you search the theories of forgetting, but actually I didn't have searched it on internet. I have used the book of experimental psychology. So if you want to know the name of the book, you can ask me in the comment and I will tell you the name of the book if you want. So let's start with a trace decay. Trace decay focuses on the problem of availability caused when memory decay. Trace theory states that when something new is learned, a neurochemical physical memory trace is formed in the brain, and over time this trace tends to be disintegrated unless it is occasionally used. Hebb said that incoming information creates a pattern of neurons to create a neurological memory trace in the brain, which would fade away with time. And a repeated firing causes a structural change in the synapses, and rehearsal of repeated firing maintains the memory in short-term memory until a structural change is made. So let's talk about the interference. I've included a definition of interference. It is the memory interference resulting from activities that come after or subsequent to the event you're trying to remember is called interference or inhibition. Interference theory refers to the idea that forgetting occurs because of the recall of certain items interferes with the recall of other items, and interference is an important cause of forgetting. Interference is the negative inhibiting effect of one learning experience on another, and it is the blurring of one memory by other memories that are similar to it and which compete with its recall and retrieval. So in nature, the interfering atoms are said to originate from an overstimulating environment, and a vast amount of experimental evidence of everyday experience too indicate that learning new things interferes with our memory of what we learned earlier, and prior learning interferes with our memory of things learned later. So interference exists in two branches. There are retroactive and proactive. Interference is retroactive interference and proactive interference. So retroactive interference is when the later memory interferes with the past memory, causing it to change in a particular extent. It is called retroactive because interference is with the memory of events that came before the interfering activity. Later learning disrupts memory for earlier learning. Whereas in proactive or inhibition, proactive interference, or you can say proactive inhibition, on the other hand, is due to events that come before to be remembered information or material. Previous learning interfere with later learning and memory or retention. So proactive is when older memory interferes with the later memory, causing it to damage. And the interference disrupts the various kind of association between stimuli and responses formed during learning. Interference also somehow has its greatest effect on the memory of retrieval cues. So both retroactive and proactive interference are greatest when two different responses have been associated with the same stimulus. Intermediate when two similar stimuli are involved, and at least when two quite different stimuli are involved. In fact, probably only a small fraction of forgetting can be attributed to retroactive and proactive interference. And now let's come to the third type, which is retrieval failure. Retrieval failure. Forgetting is the process of fading of learned or memorized experience with the passage of time, and according to this view, forgetting is controlled by the time factor. Impression, which is impressions, fade away as the time passes, and it is called the theory of disuse or decay. Psychologists believe that learning results in neurological change in the brain, resulting in the formation of traces in the brain. And these memory traces or impressions made on the brain get weaker and finally fade away or decay with the passage of time, or by not using that information for a long period of time. That is through disuse. And this is progressive loss in retention with lapse of time. And according to Albert Schweitzer, in 1975 to 1965, he was a physician. He said that happiness is nothing more than health and poor memory. So, apart from these three main causes of or reasons of forgetting, there are the following. There are some, you can say, other causes which we will be discussing in our video, and there is the storage failure. Storage failure is basically it is the forgetting from long-term memory takes place due to many factors. It may be due to decay of memory trace because stored material is not in use for a long period of time, and owing to disuse, the memory trace fade and ultimately become inaccessible. And more often than not, memory trace is there in long-term memory, but interfere in proper search for retrieval of information by situational factor that leads us to think that the trace memory is forever, and this appears to be lost, but memory traces are never completely lost. Memory deteriorates with time if they are not in use, so the course of forgetting is initially rapid and then levels off with time. Encoding failure refers to the brain's occasional failure to create a memory link. So it can affect encoding, and a substance, a trauma or substance use. These can affect encoding efficiency. And the same brain areas jump into action when young adults are encoding new information, are less responsive among older adults, and the slower encoding helps explain age-related memory decline. Whereas in organic cause, forgetting that causes through physiological damage or dilapidation to the brain is referred to as organic cause of forgetting. And a certain physical illness or disease, age, accident, and the like uh, can cause some form of damage to brain tissues and can alter the functioning of the brain and nervous system, which result in forgetting or amnesia. So these theories encompass the loss of information already retained in the long-term memory, and or the inability to encode new information. For example, information, for example, including Alzheimer's, amnesia, and dementia. Consolidatory theory and the gradual slowing down of the central nervous system due to aging. Now let's come to the seventh reason of the forgetting, and this is also you can consider it as a part of the theory. So Atkinson and Sheffrin claimed that forgetting often occurs because of confusion among similar long-term memories. They argue that nearly all forgetting from long-term memory is due to an inability to find the appropriate memory trace rather than to the disappearance of the trace from the memory system. So the next one is the trace dependent forgetting and cue dependent forgetting. So according to Andrew Tilling, I'm very bad at pronouncing names. Endel Tulving in 1927. He was a cognitive psychologist and a Canadian neuroscientist. So, according to him, trace dependent forgetting and cue dependent forgetting are the only two major causes of forgetting. So, trace dependent forgetting, and we were discussing them in that trace dependent forgetting occurs because the memory trace has deteriorated or decayed, or required information or material has been lost from the memory system, and physiological traces in the brain are not available in the time of recall or retrieval. So, and cue dependent forgetting occurs when the memory trace still exists, but there is no suitable retrieval cue to trigger off memory. This information is not accessible, and it's a kind of forgetting in which the required information or material in the long-term memory store, but cannot be retrieved without a suitable retrieval cue. And the cues present at the time of learning are not present at the time of recall, or interfering and competing cues are present and they block the memory. So, cue dependent or retrieval failure is the failure to recall memory due to missing stimuli or cue that were present at the time of memory was encoded. So, it is one of the 5 cognitive psychology theories of forgetting, and it states that memory is sometimes temporarily forgotten purely because it cannot be retrieved, but proper cues can bring it to mind. The information still exists, but without these cues, retrieval is unlikely. Furthermore, a good retrieval cue must be consistent with original encoding of the information. So, if the sound of the word is emphasized during the encoding, the cue should also put emphasis on the phonetic quality of the word. Information is available, however, just not readily available without these cues. So, the next you can say reason of forgetting, and one of the reasons of forgetting is the motivated forgetting or repression. So, theories on the relationship between motivation and forgetting or repression, repressive or suppressive forgetting states that unhappy memories are easily forgotten, and that is forgetting is a motivated and intentional process. This theory was put forward by Sigmund Freud. According to him, forgetting is due to conscious repression or suppression by the person, and repression is a mental function which cushions the mind against the unpleasant effect of painful, traumatic and unacceptable experiences, events, memories, or conflicts. So, Freud claimed that repressed memories are traumatic and painful and are strongly associated with anxiety. So, guilt or other negative emotions, the anxiety associated with memory is so great that the memory is kept out or the memory is kept out or pushed out of consciousness, although it still exists in the unconscious mind. Now let's talk about the 7 sins of memory. Forgetting, like attention, is selective. And forgetting in some sense is good, because if forgetting does not take place, our life will be burdened with useless and unpleasant information. So forgetting is good thing. Sometimes in some sense it is good. Memory researcher Daniel Schachter in 1999 enumerates 7 ways our memory fails us and calls them 7 sins of memory. And these are the absent-mindedness, which is inattention to details, produces encoding failure. And the second one is transience, and transience includes storage decay over time, which is information which is not used or time fades away. And the third one is blocking. It includes inaccessibility of stored information or material. And then Actually, he claimed 7 sins of memory, in which the 3 sins were of distortion and 1 sin was of intrusion. So those 3 sins out of the 7 sins are misattribution, and misattribution includes confusing the source of information. And then there is the 5th one is suggestibility, and suggestibility is lingering effect of misinformation. And 6th one is bias. Bias includes belief colored recollection. And 1 sin of intrusion was the persistent. Persistent includes unwanted memories. So let's talk about the factors affecting forgetting. There are basically some important factors that are involved in forgetting. The first one is rate of original learning. When an individual learns with speed, forgetting will be slow, and when learning is slow, the individual tends to forget quickly. And then there is overlearning. The overlearning is the term used to describe the practice that continues after a perfect recall has been scored, and overlearning is essential for improving retention or retrieval. For example, nursery rhymes and multiplication tables. And then there is interference. Interference can hamper memorization and retrieval. So there is retroactive interference when learning new information causes forgetting of old information, and proactive interference where learning of one piece of information makes it hard to learn similar new information. Greenberg and Underwood have conducted several experiments using within groups or subjects design on proactive inhibition have showed that the greater number of pre-released learned the higher amount of proactive inhibition. Now the last one is then there is periodic reviews. The periodic reviews would include reviews soon after the original learning may prevent the very rapid forgetting that normally takes place immediately after practice. And then there is meaningfulness. The meaningfulness, the most effective method to improve retention is to make the subject matter meaningful, and a meaningful matter is forgotten less rapidly than the nonsense or meaningless material. Then there is intention to learn. Most people feel that we are more likely to remember something if we deliberately try to learn it. And the learner's intention while learning affects both the retention of the material and the rate of the original learning. But Heidi and Jenkins in 1973 reported that memory is determined by the nature of the processing that occurs at the time of learning rather than by the presence or absence of the intention to learn the material. And then there is space versus massed learning. The space of repetition of practice period influences retention, and one may learn the subject matter superficially for immediate use by cramming. But for permanent retention, a time interval between repetition is more effective. And the last one is emotion. Emotion can have a powerful impact on memory, and numerous studies have shown that the most vivid autobiographical memories tend to be more of emotional events, which are likely to be recalled more often and with more clarity and detail the natural events. So this was the end of the video. If you like the video, your concept is clear, you can like the video, and if you're not, you can ask us in the comment which topic was confusing, and we'll be there to help you out. And for the notification of the upcoming videos, you can subscribe to our channel, because we normally upload course-based videos on every Saturday and Sunday, and request-based videos are uploaded from Monday to Friday. We try our level best to take out time from or busy life or busy daily routine and upload a request-based video for you. And you can share the link of the video or in channel with your friends and family, because sharing is caring. And until then, Allah Hafiz.